so pull apart that word and be like murderer, that's defining somebody by their worst action. So that's not what's happening. So then when you say, okay, a person who committed homicide, and then I'll say like, well, what do you mean when you say they're not what you expected? And the person will be like, well, they're nice and smart and down to earth, and they kind of remind me of my brother or my father. And in those moments, that is where the true transformation happens, because now you can no longer look somebody in the face and say, I want you executed, or I want you to be incarcerated for the rest of your life. Because now I'm saying it to Perry, right? Like I'm looking at you and I would be saying it to you. And that makes it much harder to say than if just you were some distant figure, off in the universe. And I'm like, well, anybody who does that should be executed or put away forever. And that's what we've done with mass incarceration. So when you bring up the issue of judgment, I remind people that it is developmentally appropriate that when we're teenagers, we're judgy as all hell. We are so judgy as adolescents. Oh my God. And into our early 20s, judgy. Okay, great. Then at some point, the real world smacks you in the face in your late 20s and your brain is fully developed and you run up against the same problems that every other human being has ever run up against. And then you start to be like, oh. So when people say, what do I do about racism, classism, mass incarceration, poverty, homelessness, substance abuse, what do I do about those things? The first thing is to imagine yourself in that person's shoes and find out what your judgments are. That's the first thing to do.
I'm glad you said that,
Thank you.
I 100% agree with you with that. Because a lot of times with the prisoners, with the inmates, because we had talked to a lot of inmates in our show, and of course a lot of them is innocent, but the crimes they have commit, and they even on death row, and people just look at that one track like, you did it, or you're a bad person, you deserve this, this happened to you. But you gotta remember, they are human. And they be treated like animals because of that judgmental. People look at them so negative. And I'm glad you said that. I mean, because you never know who, I'm going to go by God. You never know who God will put in your life to make that change. Because a long time ago, I'm going to be honest, I always thought inmates were bad people too. They deserve what they get.
Sure.
Until I had met, until I have a friend now in prison. I had other people I know, and after I spoke to a few inmates, that whole attitude changed.
For our listeners to understand, language is so important in our country, and something we have been, moving towards in the prison reform world is also, we move away at the request of the people inside. We move away from the word inmate because it's considered to be derogatory. So we ask people now to refer to people inside as, incarcerated people or people who are experiencing incarceration. And so I'm glad you mentioned that word, because I just think it's another one of those things that is helpful when we speak about the people inside,
I want to add to that going back to the the judgmental mentality.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is such an important place to start. It is for that reason why I really don't care what race you are. I don't. What I do care is what's running through your crazy mind about me.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times. And this happens, and here in New York, this attitude is on steroids. I can't tell you. You want to know what freaks me out? Like one time, I had explained this story, Jeanette. You know, I work for Uber Eats up here in New York City, and like this kind of situation happens to me a lot here in New York City. And I went to make this pickup at Chipotle, and here comes this guy, you know, yeah, white guy. All right.
Sure.
He stands off to my left.
There you go, judging.
He stands off to my left. You know, I can see him out of the corner of my eye. You know, I'm just sitting there waiting for my order to pick up the order to go deliver it. And he's standing there, and I'm noticing that he's like frozen, staring at me. I'm like, here we go. Here comes the dumb question. And sure enough, so what's your time? Or in other words, the time it takes me to make the delivery. I know that was a pointless, phony question. So I said, bro, it's none of your business what time is, man. Leave me alone, man. He says, I'm just trying to break the ice. This guy said, that's what I mean. He said it ain't judging me. I don't know who this dude is. I don't know this guy from Adam, but they camouflage it in this fake phony pretending to be friendly. But they're standing there, when you got all these people standing around, and you come and zero in on me, and you know what I mean? Now, the thing was that I was like, you know, it pisses me off because that happens a lot. And it pisses me off when they do that because it makes me tear into them. And I'll be like, bro, I don't care. I tell them straight from the beginning, look, bro, I don't care what you think of me. If black people make you nervous, pack your stuff and get out of here, man. I tell them straight up. If you're not comfortable around black people, adios, bro. You know, I'm sorry. I don't care what you think of me.
Maybe they wanted to make a friendship. They want to get to know you.
You see the pattern of it happening over and over and over again. And they're saying the same stupid thing again and again and again and again. I'm just trying to break the ice. Here's my favorite.
But Perry, you gotta understand, you don't know what's in that person's mind. I don't think it's like a judgmental. I think it's that he probably wants to make a friendship. You probably the person he wants to be friends with, the first black person.
Jen,
I mean, it's a lot of.
Jen, you tell me, Brashani, what do you think? You tell me.
What I think. What you're bringing up.
Let me put it to you this way.
Yeah.
Let's say that you're at a restaurant, you're sitting down eating, and I'm sitting over from you, and I'm looking at you, and you notice me staring at you, and I'm just watching you, So I decided to get him to come over. Does it taste good? What do you think of me if I did that?
What I think is that what it proves is that none of us like to be objectified or projected onto, which is a form of judgment. So, you know, I think that what Jeanette's point is that most people, even well-intentioned people who would like to break down the barriers that are around them, they don't necessarily know how to go about it in a way that actually then allows people to not feel, again, objectified or projected onto. So if I'm the only, you know, if I'm the only white woman in the room and somebody seeks me out to be like, well, since you're white, you know, like I'm coming over to talk to you. It's like, well, don't do me any favors. Like, you know, if you're genuinely interested in me as a human being. So I get it. I think that that's sort of what you're talking about, Perry. So Jeanette's point, of course, is that like, well, we're all trying to do our best and we're not all smooth operators in this way. But Perry, what you're talking about is like, if somebody just looks at you and sees your skin color and then decides that that means they need to come and talk to you, then they have just reduced you to a characteristic. So even if they're well-intentioned, you're going to probably feel a particular way about it. And that's going to be based on your, your upbringing and your, the way you're operating in the world. Some people might be, and this is why I say, like, when people talk about racial justice, I remind people that you should find what works for you and then do it, because understand that not everybody around you is going to respond well to you. And the reason I say that I say, but do it anyway. So I find what is authentic for me and then I do it. Somebody else is going to see what I'm doing and not feel good about what I'm doing, because from their perception, it's this, that, whatever. Somebody's always going to judge me for what I do. But if I'm good with what I'm doing, then at the end of the day, that's all that matters. But the approval of everyone around us is a sickness in our American society, that we're constantly looking for everybody to say that whatever we're doing or saying is okay.
See, now that I agree with you. It's just that the one thing that gets me about that is the genuine and the authenticity factor.
Right.
I tell you how many times when people come at me and they always have a pattern of behavior that's always the same. And I can't tell you how many times people come at me with that. I can't tell you how many times people will come at me. So who you work for? I'm just trying to break what makes you assume that I'm an ICE person? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and what's the reason for the relationship building? Because that's the other thing too. Are you really trying to build a relationship, or are you just so uncomfortable in your own skin you can't just sit there for a second?
Yeah. But the thing is that there's all of these people standing around. Why don't you go ask one of them dumb questions? You're not. You want to come to me. Now, here's the thing. Now, I don't think it's because he's, it's me personally. I just think that it's because, they're having these crazy thoughts running through their minds about me. They don't know me from Adam, and they want to know what I'm all about. Bro, that makes me feel like you put me in a position whereas I now am obligated to you. I got to explain myself to you. I have to, you know what I mean? I have to do what I got to do to put you at ease and make you feel comfortable so that you don't feel. I am tired of that.
Yeah, it becomes your responsibility, which is exactly a part, right?
And it makes me feel like, now I got to do something to make this guy feel comfortable. I'm not here to, I don't owe you anything. Please stop it with don't come, I don't owe you anything. But that's the mentality. The mentality is you owe. Therefore, you have to explain. It's like it's like how many times you see on the internet, a cop pull over, or a security guard pull over a black guy, and he start interrogating him with all of these pointless questions after he's already given him his ID and he's ran his ID and he's checked that there's nothing wrong and everything is fine. He should be going on his way. But no, here come the interrogation. So why are you driving tonight? So where are you going? Who are you visiting? What do you ask me?
Can I tell you a story about that?
Go ahead.
Because we're drawing so many parallels, right, between our experiences. So again, right, racism, classism, very intertwined. So I grew up in rural poverty. It's already been established. I left my house at 17. One of the reasons, of course, being that I wanted to relieve my father of one less mouth to feed in this desperate, impoverished situation. Understanding that as a teenager, I was doing my father's books. I was running, he had his own business and I would do his accounting books. So I'm 15 years old and seeing that my father is bringing in $15,000 in a year. We're a family of 4. We're way below the poverty line, right? So I left at 17. And I managed to get into one of the University of Southern Maine, down in, which is about 4 hours south of where I grew up. And I managed to get into that. So I just needed to get between being like a high school senior to September, so I can move into August, so I can move into the dorm. But I was pretty much homeless for that summer, living with guys, right? And sort of doing what I needed to do so that I wasn't in my parents' house, but I didn't really have a place to stay. So then I make it to Southern Maine, which is much more heavily populated than rural Maine. So I'm in the city, right? I'm in Portland and it's so exciting. And I'm about to start college and I get my, it's August and I move in and I'm in, I'm going to be living in the dorm, and that whole thing is a different story of me showing up with like what I could carry in my car versus my roommate who had their parents with a moving truck and all the furniture and whatever to like, I'm serious, a moving truck with carpets and a different bed than the dorm provided and like just whatever. The two sides of our room were like the starkest contrast of privilege versus it was crazy. But anyway, so it's August and I hear about a beautiful place to swim nearby. And it's hot. And I'm like, I'm going to go. I jump in my beater car, this like 1989 Buick station wagon and whatever that I had managed to buy. And I'm driving through one of the most privileged towns in Southern Maine. So I've left Portland and I'm out on the coast and I'm driving up to the beach. And I get pulled over. Now, at the time, one of the privileges of being white is that when I would get, and female, is anytime I encountered police as an adolescent, I was mouthy, and that is a privilege. I got to be mouthy. It was like the fact that I didn't get thrown to the ground and arrested is a miracle. I was charged with a crime as an adolescent, but I didn't get arrested. I didn't have to do time, which again is a reflection of that I was white and female. I truly believe that. But so this guy pulls me over and I get mouthy and I'm like, what's the problem or whatever? And he was like, who are you? He's like, I don't recognize you. And I was like, well, I just moved here. Like, I just moved to Southern Maine. Like, I don't know this area. And he's like, where are you going? And I'm like, I heard there's a beach around here. And he says, not for people like you. And he takes my driver's license and he runs it. And he comes back and he says, you are going to turn your car around and you are going to leave and you are never going to come back here again. He's like, and I'm going to follow you until you've crossed the border of my town.
This is Perry Duff saying thank you for taking the time to come and check out our show. And as always, if you are a person who was wrongly incarcerated for a crime you didn't commit, come share your story on the Hustler's Corner, New York City, Victims of the System series. If you are a person who is self-reformed and you are now active in the community to better the conditions, come share your story on the Hustler's Corner, New York City, Legends of the Hood series. If you're a struggling performing artist looking to build her brand and her career in the music or the performing arts industry, come share your story on the Hustler's Corner New York City On the Grind series. If you are a Black business, a Black-owned business, and you're looking to get your story out there, as well as a place to showcase your products, come share your story on the Hustler's Corner New York City Black Business Movement series. If you are a woman who's been through traumatic times and you're looking to share your story of how you overcame those traumatic times, please come share your story on the Hustler's Corner New York City Lipstick Stories series. And as always, if you like the show, please show your love. Hit that like button, share, don't forget to leave a comment, and most of all, subscribe. Thank you. Looking forward to seeing you join us again. Peace.